That's not what it is. This is Lower Decks. What do you think it is? Imagine you're zooming into my eyebrow right now. What do you think? Huh? Lieutenant Commander Yor has discovered that he can actually send an entire ship to the Kelvin timeline, although he needs training to do it, and he's experimented on our ship, given that our ship is considered to be the most sacrificial in all of Starfleet. We went to the Kelvin timeline and saw many fascinating things, like this square moon. We also saw a number of other curious cubical things. Hello, welcome back to Lower Decks. We're in episode 6 of season 5. We're over the hump. We have 4 episodes left. If they don't start building up what would be the final and background arc of this season soon, there may not be one, which is fine. I know they're finding these holes in space, and I know there's parallel universes going on here with this season, but it doesn't really come up in this episode, just to get that out of the way now. So if you were hoping for an update on what was going on in the background, overarching, arc for the season, it's not here, and I'm starting to worry a little bit. Again, a season doesn't have to have one, but this is the final season of Lower Decks. Did they know it going in? I often complain with the final season of Discovery, that they weren't really kind of writing this like it was the final season, and then people told me that no, they found out it was canceled in the middle of it and they couldn't really change a lot. Did they change anything here? Are they going to go back for some reshoots, even though this is a cartoon? That remains to be seen. This is of gods and angels. Wait, on closer inspection, that's not angels. That's angles. We're going to find out why in a moment. But my brain auto-completed the title of this. When I first read the title of this episode before it came out, I actually thought it was Gods and Angels. Until I watched it and looked closely. Yeah, autocomplete. It's a hell of a thing. What's going on with this episode? What does it have to do with gods, and what does it have to do with angles? Do you remember Who Mourns for Adonais? TOS? Yeah, some of these god characters, they're real people. They're, in some cases, gigantic beings of unimaginable power who wish to be worshipped again, and then other times maybe they're humanoid size. Which one do you think we're going to meet in this episode? Sorry to spoil you on that, but I just thought it was interesting to get it out of the way now, since we're talking about gods. And then we're also talking about angles. What angles are we talking about? Well, we're talking about cubes. They got many angles. And we've got spheres who don't really have, a lot of angles per se, unless you talk about the coming off of a tangent off the surface of the sphere. But that is another point entirely. That is beyond the scope of this review, if you can imagine. This is a bottle episode. That means the show takes place entirely inside the ship, which, normally speaking, would kind of hurt the visual aspect of the show, but this is Lower Decks, and you can animate whatever you want, it would seem. So this being a bottle episode is a lot less of an excuse that you can accurately use if you're talking about the visuals of a show. If you were saying a live-action Trek was a bottle episode, I would think it was just going to be talking. Let's just talk for this episode, which is fine, but this is Lower Decks, and we're expecting something a lot crazier. Do we get it? We have to mediate a discussion, which is something that happens a lot in Star Trek. But they didn't bring in the Enterprise this time. They brought in the Cerritos. So how important can it really be, right? We have to mediate negotiations between two different alien cultures. This being spheres and cubes. Literally, the spheres are like orange and the cubes are blue. And their nebulas collided into each other 100 years ago. And these are energy beings, like we're so used to in Star Trek by now. What are they? Are they physical? Are they not? They change shape. They float. They absorb power. If you give them a battery, here, have this battery. Yum, I love it. Potential energy. That's how they feed. That's how they work. And we need to negotiate their peace talks. And we want an end of these hostilities. And we've seen this in TNG many times. Hopefully nobody gets eaten. No one delegate has to be kept separate from the other delegate lest they eat each other. You remember those people in TNG, if you remember. I think back in early TNG. I'm getting off track here. What are we going to do? We're at the peace talks between our cubes and our spheres. Freeman is there, and we also know that in our B plot, which was the subject of the intro scene, the scene before the intro plays in this episode of Lower Decks. We see Olly, this character with a laurel, like a wreath type thing of leaves around her head. It's a bioluminescent construct she can't get rid of. She's causing all kinds of problems, trying to load spherical furniture onto a trolley. I could load a neutron star into this thing, and then touches it, and then it goes, psst. Pay attention to that, and then it all just kind of crumbles over and causes an accident. This Olly character has caused all kinds of problems, and I think has been kicked off 6 ships by now. What's up with that? So we got her A plot and her B plot. We got gods, Olly, and our angles, the spheres and the cubes. How do they butt heads? Or how do they help each other? One should hope that they do help each other and don't cause more havoc than is necessary. This is Star Trek, but it's also Lower Decks, so insanity will ensue. Be prepared for it. We're interrupted in our negotiations by the missing Quadralon and Radiara. There's 2 of these characters from both factions of these shapes that are gone. Where did they go? They go to their quarters. Shaxs, I think this is like the first time we even see Shaxs do anything this season. He's like scanning a splatter on the wall, like an energy snot they call it, or something like that. That's not what it is. This is Lower Decks. What do you think it is? Imagine you're zooming into my eyebrow right now. What do you think? Huh? What are you thinking? What do you think that is in Lower Decks? Something decidedly more nasty. Anyway, these 2 people are missing, complicating the peace talks. Wait a minute, somebody could have killed them, they could have killed each other, they could have ran off somewhere, where did they go? You're destabilizing an already unstable thing here with these peace talks. So we really have to get this sorted out. And Mariner and Olly are on the case. Olly has been paired up with Mariner. Mariner stole for a moment her mother's pad to access information that's above her grade in Starfleet to find out that she is indeed a demigod. But Olly doesn't know that we know. And you know, because you're watching this review and I've already told you. Olly, this is the season where they found out that maybe Mariner should grow up, and they learned how to do it. And they learned how to have our characters work above other characters to increase their maturity level. And Mariner's finally getting it now, even though this should have been in Season 3. And, like, Olly should have been a main character by now. And they wasted a lot of time. They wasted, like, maybe 3 to 2.5 seasons of time just reiterating Mariner's arc over and over and over again and never letting her develop. I'm glad you're letting her do it now. This is good Mariner. I'm happy with this Mariner. Because Mariner is paired up with a young Mariner. All of us above a certain age have experienced meeting our younger self. That's not possible. How can you do that? Well, you can. You can always find somebody that was like you when you were their age. And you know what bothers them, because they're a lot like you, and you know how to press their buttons. And that's exactly what Mariner's doing with Olly here, and I thought it was so cute. It really just worked for me. It might be one of those things where you need that type of life experience in order to get it, but I got it. And I know people who are just me, but 20 years younger. I know them, and I think that's what's going on here. So Olly is insubordinate, quick to fly off the handle, and causes all kinds of problems, and wants to think outside of the box. And that was Mariner not so long ago, as in like last season, or even at some point in this season, unfortunately. They have to figure out where Quadralon and Radiara have gone. They interview an orb. They go into his quarters. They use an override code to get in the door and see someone naked. The orb naked is when they're not glowing. That's the equivalent of seeing them naked. You look fine. Somebody isn't skipping Radius Day. Very funny, Mariner. They find anti-cube propaganda in their quarters. And from what the orb was saying, I tend to believe them. The orb really sounded like they had that propaganda to destroy it in an act of solidarity with the orbs. And they're pressuring this poor orb, and I believed him, but Olly did not, and Olly escalated this very quickly. Wow, this went from 0 to 11 really quickly, didn't it, Olly? Methinks Olly's problems are beyond having to do with the demigod and things related to that, and maybe just might be immaturity, because this is going beyond hiding your demigod status. This is going into just assaulting someone, assaulting a very much honored guest on this ship, which is worse than assaulting another officer. An officer signed on the dotted line. These guests, well, they're guests. What do you think the name entails? Very, very bad. I did not like that. I was Starfleet treating Starfleet in a less than savory way is one thing, but you treating guests like that, maybe you belong in the brig for more than a day. Maybe you should be in the brig for a month until you until you learn that you cannot be treating guests in any way less than perfect. But alas, this is Olly, and Olly is a young mariner, and I wish we had figured this out seasons ago, so we could have had our new cast of characters by now. Sadly, that's not what we got. We're stuck with characters who, in my book, Mariner, Tendi, Rutherford, they've become a little boring. Boimler's still kind of funny here and there. I wish Rutherford, sorry to go on this tangent off the surface of this sphere, but I really wish Rutherford got more into it with his implant. That was a Vulcan implant that lets him use logical thinking and stuff like that, and it just never come back. It never came back. It was a factor for like a little bit in like the first 2 seasons or something, and then something in season 3, and then it's just gone. Anything that made Rutherford unique is totally gone. Tendi's whole plot with their piracy and all that stuff was totally resolved in the first 2 episodes of this season. It's gone. Boimler, right now, the only thing interesting about him is that he's stealing information about himself from a pad from an alternate timeline to learn how to be cooler. That's the only thing that I'm really paying attention to with the characters this season. It's kind of sad. Mariner is just Mariner, and like I said, Rutherford is just Rutherford, except not as much as he should be. And Tendi is just deleted. They deleted Tendi's piracy plot, and that's what we're left with. Anyway, what are we going to do with this orb? The orb ran off. The orb got offended, left his quarters, and now Olly and Mariner are left holding the bag on this issue. What are we going to do? Meanwhile, in our B plot, or however you want to say it, these plots do intertwine eventually, but and you do find out how they thematically do link up with each other. So this isn't 2 totally disparate plot lines, which makes me happy. Boimler is, like I said before, using that alternate timeline red pad. Oh, the bezel is a little bit different. Oh no, it's red. How come you can't see that? Yeah, it was red. Nobody noticed. Like, everybody kind of knew but didn't say anything that Boimler was using the alternate universe pad, which you probably don't want to be seen doing. That probably breaks something. There's some rule we're breaking by stealing an alternate universe pad from our alternate universe self and finding out about ourself in the alternate universe and then copying them so we can be cool too, as in growing the beard. You know, it's all in the beard, baby. Boimler's right on that, and he has been growing a beard slowly this whole season. An interesting way to see the passage of time, by the way. And what he has to do is he has to get on good side with Dr. Tana. In the alternate universe, Dr. Tana calls Boimler Flip. Like, she even has a nickname for him. And she takes him to her book club. And in order to be cool, he has to mimic his personality based on this alternate universe Boimler. And to do that, he has to befriend Dr. Tana and be in her book club. How do you think this is going to work out? So he has to flip through these pages and keep saying the word flip when he's talking to Dr. Tana, and then he has to flip, as in backflip, over a medical cart that was so much easier with the lower gravity when he was testing it out, and now it's not with the normal gravity, and he dunks on that medical cart and goes flying and smashes it, and a bunch of hyposprays fly all around him, and he gets injected with a number of experimental hyposprays, I should say, sorry. And it's all very hilarious. And poor Boimler, just trying to get on Dr. Tana's good side. Psst, you're in a Star Trek episode. Maybe the moral lesson here is to just be yourself. Psst, psst. Are Olly and Mariner and our cubes and spheres being themselves? If you consider being yourselves getting into a war, a quote-unquote shape war, as they put it, they go into the conference room with Captain Freeman, only to find our characters now having known that Quadralon and Radiara have been gone. We can't find them. We're at the boiling point here. What are we going to do? Olly mentions that we need to go find that computer. You know, the computer that was lost from what was it, Quadralon's quarters at the beginning of this episode. This computer probably has evidence on it. We need to find it. Oops. Olly accidentally said melted computer. What? This piques Mariner's interest. Melted computer? How did you know it was melted? We didn't see the missing computer yet from their quarters. How did you know? So we go to Olly's locker, and we find the boots from Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. No, that's not what we find. We don't find the boots. We find the melted computer she was talking about, with evidence on it. Probably has evidence on it, because it was taken from their quarters originally at the beginning of this episode, although that's easy to forget. And I had to watch this 3 times to figure out where that computer came from, because it just kind of slipped through the dialogue. A writing problem, or am I stupid? This computer is melted at the back. What's the problem? Olly couldn't admit it before, but she does have demigod powers. She has electrical powers. She touches things, and they blow up, because she interferes with their electrical field in some way. And Olly just wanted to be normal, and Olly wasn't being her true self. Even though being able to control the flow of electricity might be really useful in Starfleet, just like how being an ex-Borg might be useful in some way in Starfleet. You know, with the Borg nanites and stuff like that. And, I have a Borg program that can fix this. We can do a Borg thing to fix the Voyager. Wink, wink. Remember Star Trek Picard? When Starfleet, refused 7 way back in, I think, season 1. Would that really happen? No. If Olly had said, I have electrical powers and I can do special things. Yeah. Just be yourself. Every time this has ever happened, it's been bad. Just be yourself. Tell Starfleet what you can do. As long as you're not genetically engineered, that is. Womp womp. Anyway, Olly does have these electrical powers, and she did touch that computer / pad, did melt it. The trolley at the beginning of this episode, she touched it and accidentally electrocuted it and broke it. That's what happened. That's why she gets kicked off all these ships. It's not misbehavior, or maybe it is. Maybe it's misbehavior. I don't know. Misbehavior brought on by the mental trauma of trying to hide her own true nature. That remains to be seen. She keeps zapping things, right? She zapped that computer, melted it, and she zapped that trolley, and she zapped a few other things in this episode if you look closely. And if you were paying attention, you'd know that by now these powers are probably going to have to save the day, because our orbs and our cubes have amalgamated into a giant sphere and a giant cube. Yeah, they're not original at all, and they're shooting at each other in space with Cerritos caught in the crossfire, and this is going to destroy the Cerritos. Olly, you have to use your powers. Use them now. Use them in front of everyone. Tell them what you can do. Olly invents some kind of technobabble that may be using her powers, I'm not sure, it all happens so fast, to use the tractor beam to tractor out these squares and cubes and dissipate their larger shapes. So we got some technobabble, we got some magic. I'm not sure how it all works, but these electrical powers do save the day. And Olly, according to Billups, you got a real eye for these power systems. You got to get back in engineering. I wish Olly was here 2 seasons ago, but alas, this is the final season, and we're shoving in what we can, I guess. Not developing these characters, throwing them out to the wind, being one with the wind as it was, so be it. You're wondering how Boimler fits into this. Boimler tries to go back to Dr. T'Ana and let's say, oh, look, according to this pad, this is how Dr. T'Ana talks to alternate Boimler. And it just, boop, 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 lots of cursing, things that are censored. And Dr. T'Ana just kind of screams at Boimler. And actually what we want to do is we want to curse at Dr. T'Ana to break the ice. That sounds like it won't backfire. That sounds like it won't be hilarious. And this is what Boimler does. Hey, what's crappening? Instead of saying happening, he says crappening. And listen, humor, laughter is the voice of your innermost soul. So is my soul corrupt and stupid? Because I started laughing out loud, uncontrollably when this happened. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, I don't know. But I don't know what exactly is making me laugh with this. We had that Asif, I think in the episode Caves, have his leg heal wrong. And I almost died laughing at this. And then when Boimler started just cursing at Dr. T'Ana and said, what's crappening? It's so subjective. I don't know what to tell you. It's not, I cannot do a 1, 2, 3. explanation for why this works like this. But I thought this was so freaking funny. And then Dr. Diana takes it the wrong way and actually starts scratching him and starts basically just assaulting Boimler. It's Boimler's fault. And Boimler just gets absolutely beat down by Dr. Diana. It's so crazy. Only Shaxs was there. Shaxs might like it. Wink, wink. Anyway, this doesn't work, but Boimler ends up in the shuttle bay with Olly and Mariner as Olly uses her powers to absorb any remaining electrical power from the orbs and cubes after they've been tractor beamed back into the shuttle bay. And oh no, I've absorbed too much. Starts glowing and then unleashes a veritable rainstorm of tiny, floppy, physically real, cartoon-shaped thunderbolts. Like the way a kid would draw a thunderbolt on a piece of paper, except they're physically manifest and solid. And one goes into Boimler's butt. Since one is in Boimler's butt, he has to get it removed from his butt. And Dr. Diana, in a very complicated looking and dangerous procedure, manages to remove the entire thunderbolt from Boimler's butt. And everybody's watching, and they rub Dr. Diana's forehead to get the sweat off. And they're going to call this the Dr. Diana procedure, hopefully. And having launched Diana's career into the history books of medical procedures, Boimler is now friends with Dr. Diana. And it turned out to work out, you know. Dr. Diana has a new name for Boimler. He's got the nickname, and guess what? Hey, you got to swing by the book club later. So Boimler got what he wants. He ended up getting into a fight with Dr. Diana, crashing a medical cart, getting hypo-sprayed with experimental medicines, and then getting shot with a lightning bolt. And somehow this worked out and he's in the book club. So Rutherford and Boimler march off into the sunset together, laughing it up, saying, yeah, hey, all we got to do is copy the pad. We copied the pad and we ended up in their good books. And I got to do that with Billups. Let me see that pad. And Tendi's saying, no, you're supposed to be yourselves. You're not taking the right lesson from this. You know, the lesson the show wanted you to take. So, but it's so interesting that they managed to they copied the alternate universe pad character of Boimler, failed, and then succeeded by being themselves, and then asking the question: did copying the behavior of the characters on the pad lead us to behave like ourselves? What an interesting conundrum. And that's our Star Trek episode for today. This is Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 5, Episode 6 of Gods and Angles. Gods being Olly, and Angles being the cubes and spheres. Olly is in good graces with the captain and the crew, but she has to spend the night in the brig. And Mariner keeps her company outside the brig, and Olly is there with her head under the pillow, yelling about being in the brig. This is tyranny. And Mariner says, yeah, you're not like me at all, or something like that. And then Olly says, oh yeah, I like the brig. Straight out of early Lower Decks. I wish this was 2 seasons ago. It was so cool. But is it too little too late? We've got our young Mariner, and we've got Mackler and Gorm for Boimler, the people who work under Boimler, who we never see. These poor characters. You know, we're not going to be able to have a Season 6. And I don't think we're going to have a Lower Decks 2. Judging by people watching this stuff, if my channel is any indication, people don't like this stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's just my viewers. I don't know what it is, but if I make a video about TOS or Picard, I make something about animated Trek, what's this? Nobody comments, nobody watches it, nobody cares. Oh well, I'm dedicated, and I'm going to finish the job. Because I got faith in the heart. And I'm going where my heart will take me. Where it took me was this episode of Lower Decks. What are we doing for a plot here? We mediate between these two species, if you call it that. I don't know what they are. The orbs and the cubes. And Quadralon and Radiara appear in the shuttle bay at the end, revealing that they were just, they eloped together and even had a baby. Which I thought was really fast, but then I remembered that I don't know how short the gestation period is for these creatures. I have no idea. Maybe a baby can show up in a second. But It turns out the cubes and the orbs can have babies, and the baby that they have is this hilarious, flat on top, round on the bottom, little green guy called SquAaron. It's called SquAaron, and wasting no chance to have a strange break in the middle of a word, because this is Lower Decks and we play with words a lot that are funny from Star Trek. We have the little fake punctuation in the middle of it. When somebody else says SquAaron, they don't say SquAaron, they say SquAaron. And then the little SquAaron poops. And then the Quadralon says, I've only been a parent for 5 minutes, I don't know what to do. And yeah, if you were watching this episode and you saw that room, Quadralon's quarters, and wondered where they went, and immediately thought that a sphere and a cube eloped together romantically, you must be a genius, because that's exactly what I thought. As soon as I saw this, I was like, oh, they went off together intentionally. That's the first thing I thought. I figured out what that thing was on the wall, the energy puke on the wall. I figured out what that was. And you'll know if you watch this episode and see what Quadralon and Radiara say at the end. I figured it out. It took a second. There was no surprise to it. The only surprise is that we did end up having a shape war before this resolved itself in this way. That was the only surprise for me. I thought it would never get to that state, but maybe it wouldn't have if we hadn't had Olly, cranking it up to infinity and screaming at these orbs and hiding things and causing a general ruckus. Mariner style. Olly, you should have just told us that you were a demigod. Why couldn't you just tell us? I mean, Starfleet higher-ups knew, according to that pad, but they couldn't guess that you had these electrical powers. They didn't know. Couldn't figure it out, really? Mariner stole that pad from Freeman and found out she was a demigod, so that means Starfleet knew. But they couldn't tell when somebody was zapping something accidentally. Couldn't tell. Methinks not. So our little SquAaron and Quadralon and Radiara are safe, and it appears that the war between the shapes is resolved. And it appears that Olly has found her place in the Cerritos, and all is right with the world. And that's how we resolve it. And it was all very funny. It was all very heartwarming. Plot-wise, like I said before, we have to resolve this situation between the shapes. We end up doing it. All's well with the world. Or worlds, because this is space, and space is the final frontier. It contains many worlds. Thematically, be yourself. Olly is able to be herself, save the day. Boimler is able to be himself in a roundabout way and save the day. And their plots do converge, because Boimler gets zapped accidentally by Olly, and then Dr. T'Ana has to remove the lightning bolt from Boimler's butt, and then in the process becomes closer friends with Boimler. Sounds good to me. Musically, during this war between these shapes, which was very dangerous looking, as they were destroying the Cerritos, I was expecting a more thumping, original kind of musical melody, like a new battle theme, but I didn't get it. And that's very sad, although the Lower Decks theme song is still just as good as ever. Visually, bottle episode, like I said, you expect it to be boring, but I didn't think so. I thought it was pretty cool seeing these squares and circles flying around, the orbs and cubes, that is, the colors, the lighting, the fact that they were they joined together in these giant shapes and were like shooting a gigantic beam at each other in the Cerritos and being rocked in the middle of it. There was some pretty cool shots here, especially at the very end when Olly unleashed all of her powers and deactivated the cubes and the spheres. The harsh lighting and the shocking Boimler and him just shaking around. It was all very interesting, and it was an interesting break from the rather robotic movement of the more slow scenes, which just look honestly very computerized. This looked like it had a lot of life in it, and I really appreciated that. All these things out of the way, I think really the last 3 episodes have been pretty good for me. I can see where some people might think this is bad, same with Starbase 80. I preferred Starbase 80 slightly. This one, it's pretty good. I might come back to it, I might not. It's just getting over the finish line for me. Not as bad as the first 2 episodes, but I'm going to have to go ahead and give this one an okay 5.5. It's serviceable. It doesn't have anything really new to say. How new is it if I tell you to be yourself? Really? Did you need to hear that? Ultimately, we're not driving the background arc of this season any further, as we did for a brief moment in Farewell to Farms. And I'm starting to wonder really what that's going to be about, if I'm honest with you. I'm Lieutenant Mark, and I'm going to see you for the next episode of Lower Decks. That's going to be episode 7, and we're on the home stretch here, guys. So get ready to say goodbye to Lower Decks. Maybe you don't like it and you want to see it go, or maybe you like it and you're sad. I don't know. Feel free to tell me. I'm Lieutenant Mark. I'm going to see you next time I see you. Signing out. Yeah.